My name is Shanika Thomas. I am a 2011 graduate of Gadsden City High School, and I am here today with Alethia Russell, also a 2011 graduate of Gadsden City High School. Hey, Alethia.
Hi. Hello, hello, hello.
How are you today?
I'm here. I'm here. It's gonna be a good day. It's a game day Saturday. It's it's mid-semester, so I'm halfway through. We're just gonna hold all the W's we can hold on this lovely Saturday. So that's it. It's a good Saturday, and I'm here. That's good.
Absolutely, absolutely. Such a positive mindset to have. I love it. I love it. I love it. I love it. So, Alethia, what have you been up to?
I have been
And
out here in Indiana studying morning, noon, and night. So really, yeah, that's really all I've been up to. I've just been studying, doing things with the task force, as you know.
Mhm.
Um, Working right now. I'm working actually two jobs. I have my assistantship at Indiana University Bloomington, where I'm a doc student, and then I have that little that little girl who just walked in my frame. My dog Layla, who I just recently adopted, has been keeping me very busy. And then I also work as a public policy intern for the Lumina Foundation in Indianapolis, Indiana.
Okay, so we're gonna put a
I
pin
know.
in that because I definitely want to hear
That was
more.
news. I forgot to
Yes,
mention that to everybody.
yes, we definitely want to hear about that.
Okay. We'll put a pin in it.
Exciting, so exciting. All right, so we're gonna go ahead and get started, and let's hear about your time at Gadsden City. So let's
Okay.
get into some icebreakers here. Can you tell us, the listeners, about what was your favorite class?
My favorite class at Gadsden City was probably any class taught by Peter Rowe. He just had the vibes all the time, and his Diet Mountain Dew,
Yes.
and his tie over the shoulder, and his like onomatopoeia when he was like really into a topic. So I think he just had the vibe that I needed to get through class every day. Even though we'll talk about that a little bit later, but I liked
His
whatever
vibe
he was
stayed
doing.
the same, and it didn't matter what was going on. It was the same. We got the same.
We got
The
the same.
same.
That's what I appreciate. I appreciated that Mr. Rowe was consistent. He was consistent
He
no
was
matter the
very
topic, no matter the day. As long as he had his Diet Mountain Dew, he was gonna do right by you,
yes,
and that's what
absolutely.
I apprecied.
You
So
know what?
yeah,
And I don't
we
remember
here.
a bad moment in his class. I do not remember a bad moment.
I don't. I
So
never had a bad moment in his class. That is
be
why
serious.
whatever
Take
he was
note.
teaching was my favorite.
All teachers should take note. Find you a routine, mellow out,
Be
and you won't have
consistent.
any problems. Yes, that
Not from
consists.
me.
Yes,
You won't have any problems from me. Let me be specific because you still gonna have problems. Just
yes,
not from
yes,
me.
yes. Yes. Oh my goodness. So, was he your favorite teacher, or can we find
I
out
would
who your
say, so I don't think I can honestly say I had a favorite teacher at
okay?
Gaston City. I would say there were some teachers who I appreciated a little bit more than others, but all in all, and we'll talk about this a little bit later. We'll get into like my high school experience. I don't think any of them did anything in particular to just be a favorite like of mine. Like when I think about impactful teachers in my life, I personally don't refer to anyone from Gaston City. So I think not necessarily a favorite, but there were some people who, I appreciated who they were for me in the time that they had with me during the day.
And some people stand out more than others, and some just don't stand out that much at all. And that's
Right.
okay. That is
That's
okay.
fine. That's
They were
fine.
there to
Teachers
do
can't
their
be everything to every single person. And
job.
that's perfectly fine.
Yes. So everybody listening, take note.
Take note.
You know, sometimes I'm like that in life. Like when people are like, "What's your favorite?" and it doesn't matter what it is, and I'm like, I'm thinking I'm the strange one because I don't have a
I
favorite.
don't have a favorite color. People are like, "What's your favorite color?" It's like, I mean, it's just whatever look good in the moment that day. Like,
If yellow is popping
if
today,
yellow is popping today, it's popping today. But I,
that's just what it is. So good. I'm glad you pointed that out because
okay.
I was thinking something was a little wrong with me for not having so many. I mean, I have a favorite food. I do have a favorite color, but when
Mm,
people are like favorite movies, I have a favorite genre. I can tell you what movies
right.
I do like,
I do
but
think I have a favorite movie.
so okay, so I think it just shifts, and there were
Yeah.
people who, like I said, some people just impact you a little bit more than others, and some
Right. Right.
don't. But it's not that they were awful; they just don't stand out that much. So
Right. Right.
okay, all right. What was your favorite lunch at Gadsden City?
Y'all know I've been waiting on this. Crispitos.
Those crispy
Crispitos,
used to get
Crispitos, Crispitos. Okay. Shout out to the lunch lady. Shout out to Miss B, though, Shanice's grandmother. She's the lunch lady. Shout out to her. Okay. Because the Crispitos are Crispitoing every single time.
they
That was
always
it.
they
They
always
don't get
is.
their due respect around these parts. But
They
I'm here to
don't.
say Crispitos were top 10 and they weren't number 10.
I know. And I'm just like, I just don't know why we didn't have Crispitos more often.
I know. I think that's what made it like so special to me because we didn't have it in the rotation that much. Like
Right.
they just show up and then it'd be
Yep.
like, "Oh, we got Crispitos
We
today.
have
I'm
this
not
random
skipping lunch."
stuff that nobody likes,
So,
but we actually like Crispitos.
right,
And, you know,
right. Give me the stuff I actually like,
you know,
and I'll be
it's just,
fine.
yeah, to make balance. And we had the balance with the Crispitos. So, do better. Do better.
Do
They
better. Okay, do
absolutely
better.
have to do better.
For those of you who are Gadsden City students who are struggling through the school lunch, it gets better when you leave.
Yeah,
when you leave,
I was looking like,
when you leave, it
does
gets better when you leave and you have to get your own lunch. It gets more expensive, but it also just gets better. So hold
it?
on. Lunchtime is going to be a great time of the day again.
Yes, one day. So just hold out just a little bit longer. One day you will get there. But moving on, tell us about your favorite place to be on a Friday night.
At home. It was probably at home. I'm not even going to hold you. When I was in high school, I worked all the time. So if I
Yeah.
had a Friday night off, I wanted to be at home. Like, I'm still like that. I'm still like that now. But for sure in high school, my favorite place to be on a Friday night was at home in the bed. I was tired. I was tired.
And for our listeners who don't know Alethea, she is a very, very hard worker. Like
Thank you.
Alethea has always been a go-getter.
Always. Okay.
Always,
Like,
always. So what she's saying is very true.
I was working,
She did.
working.
I think I did I ever see you in the drive-through at all while you were working?
No, probably. So many people used to. So my first job, for everybody listening, my first job was at Wendy's on East Meagan. Shout out to Robbie Deason, who was the owner at the time. I don't know if he still owns it. Um, but my first job was Wendy's, and I started working there when I was 16, and I held that job all the way up until I graduated. So I used to be like slinging them fries and stuff out there drive through. And people used to come to the drive through like, this girl got such a bad attitude sometimes, but I used to be like, y'all don't know what it's like to work back here. But I'm glad I did it because it takes is like a job like Wendy's or a job like I used to work at Walmart too. Like it takes working in a service job, and shout out to everybody who works in a service job. This is not to knock it. Like I think it takes a very talented, patient, skilled person to work in the service industry. But it only took me a few months in the service industry to know that working in the service industry was not for me long time. Like, I can't do this for a long term gig. I can do it while I have to do it, and I'm a better person and a better professional now that I've had to do it. But dear Lord, I could not do it for the duration of my life. Like,
It's
it just was not
definitely
going to
not
be
for
that's
the
not my
weak.
ministry.
It's not.
It's
It's
not.
not for the weak. Like,
It's not for the
I
weak.
it's always some stories. The
Always.
stories are they're never ending. So
I
yes,
know.
but it definitely prepares you for
Yeah.
life, the real
Absolutely.
world, and how to deal with people. So,
Yeah. Through
oh,
and through.
okay. All right. Tell us about your favorite Gadsden City moment.
I think probably the first time we had a pink out Friday pep rally. Like, that was like really, I don't know, it just was like really, I just impactful. Like, it was just different, than what we had usually done. And like, the spirit was really high. The team spirit was really high. It just was like, that was my favorite pep rally of the school year, was the pink out pep rally where everybody wore pink or something like that. And the, dance line had their pink pom poms and all the pink, just all the pink just made me so happy to see, like, that bridge between like a school initiative and like a service initiative. And like,
Mhm.
you never know who was in the room or in the building in general, who like had a person or a loved one or a close, family member or whatever it might be, that was like affected by breast cancer. And so for
Mhm.
me, I don't know, like, even at, my teenage weird period, I just was like, this is really nice. And I really enjoy this particular pep rally. And you know how like back then it was like we were too cool to be too cool for like a
To
pep
care
rally,
about
to like
social
to care.
issues
You know
or
what I mean? Like, it's
health
just like, I'm too
issues or
cool. Like, I don't want to be.
yeah.
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 So those are really solid highlights of the year for me to see those.
I think even still, like when my Facebook memories pop up, like that
Yes.
particular that one
That's where
always.
I have the most pictures. I have the most
Mhm.
pictures at those particular pep rallies. I have the most videos from back then from those particular pep rallies. So it's good.
Absolutely. So glad that that had an impact on you. And looking back, it really was a time that we were all unified because I'm
Right.
quite sure, like you said, most of us have been touched in some kind of way where, whether it be a family member or a close friend, in some kind of way, people have been impacted by those who had breast cancer. And so
Right.
just that awareness, that unified front to come together,
Right.
and just, bring awareness to
Yeah.
this
Just
issue, this
be,
cause. Hmm.
yeah,
And
to be
it's so.
aware and to be celebrating at the same time too. So it wasn't
Mhm.
like a down occasion. So those are
Right.
like those were peak moments.
So yes, thank you for bringing that memory to the forefront because I mean, I always see it pop up, and I'm just, I look and I'm like, it's pink out, and we were all there together, but like, do we ever truly stop and think about it? You
Like,
know,
while we're there together and
while
while
we're
we're doing what we're, yeah, yes, yeah. It's easy to put on costumes or like dressing themes and stuff and then like completely miss the whole awareness portion of it. And like, I think I was really aware of the awareness, what the whole mission of the pep rally was. And that was like a good symbol of unity for me. So yeah.
okay. All right, Alethea. We need a vivid description. Paint a picture of a typical day for you at Gadsden City.
Okay, so boom. uh I'm gonna paint a day senior year. Boom. That's the closest year that I can remember.
Mhm.
So I'm probably gonna get up. Back then, senior year was actually the first year that I didn't go to school with one of my siblings. So senior year was hard. So if you don't know, I'm the youngest of 6 kids. And me and my sister, who was closest in age to me, we kind of had a routine, especially after I started driving myself to school. So we kind of had a routine. I didn't have an alarm clock. My sister was my alarm clock. So basically, I relied on her to use her alarm clock to get up, get herself dressed, and then she would turn on her TV at a certain time every day, no matter what. Okay, she was gonna do one or two things. She was gonna turn it on VH1 or MTV, and they had like the top 10 countdown music videos going. So she would listen to that while she got dressed. And then around 7:15, 7:30, she's gonna turn it to Nickelodeon. And when I heard the Fairly Odd Parents theme song come on, I'm gonna I was gonna fly up out of that bed finally and go jump in the shower and get myself some modicum of dressed, okay, which
Mhm.
usually was like me throwing on a t-shirt and some jeans and my mom just looking like I didn't raise you like this um, when I was flying out the door. So mind you, again, I'm up at 7:30. I'm just getting in the shower at 7:30 and the school day started with 8. so
Around that time?
so naturally I'm gonna jump into my 1992 Jeep Cherokee, who me and my good friend Brittany had lovingly named Snowmobile. And I'm gonna be flying on 2 wheels into the parking lot, but not before I stopped at the Shell on Megan to get me a coffee and a donut from Krispy Kreme. Because if I'm gonna be late, I'm not gonna be late and hungry.
Yes. Take
Okay.
notes.
So I ain't proud of it, but it's who I am as a person even today. So I'm gonna
Mhm.
stop and I'm gonna get a coffee and a Krispy Kreme donut, or depending on who the teacher was, I'm gonna stop and I'm gonna get if it's Mr. Rowe, I might pick up an extra Mountain Dew. So
Mhm.
yeah, when I come in, or if it was like just anybody else, I might pick up extra donut. Because you can yell at me anyways to make me get a pass, whatever. Get the Krispy Kreme. Like you
Right.
probably hungry too. Okay.
Yeah,
So
okay.
I'm gonna do that. I'm gonna do
Mhm.
that. So I'm probably rolling into school circa 8:15. Eight
Mhm.
fifteen, 2 wheels on the part, like, flying. Whatever.
Mhm.
I'm gonna get in my parking spot, go into class. And then, a typical school day where we're going back and forth to classes or whatever. We get out at 3. I go home. I'm only home for maybe 30 minutes. And that 30 minutes, I use it to change clothes because I got to go to work at 4.
Mhm.
So I would go to work pretty much either 4 or 5 nights a week from 4 to 10 every day, or 4 or 5 nights a week. So that's a 6-hour shift at Wendy's in the drive-through, child. In the drive-through with it. And then I'm leaving at 10 and driving right back across the bridge to get to Megan to get back to my house. And I'm probably home around like 10:20, 10:30 every day. That's what
Hmm.
time I'm like getting in the house, like to be seated. And then I'm gonna stay up an extra maybe 1 to 2, maybe 1 to 3 hours to do my homework. And then I'm gonna get up and I'm
Okay.
gonna jump out of the bed like a madman at 7:30 the next day and do it all over again. So that was a typical day for me. On an off day where I didn't have to go to work, I was probably going to step practice because I did do.
Oh, y'all like
I don't
apple
remember what we
pie?
called it. Yeah, whatever they were called. I don't even remember what they were called. Uh, I don't remember the name.
Y'all were
It was
apple
Alpha
alpha
something. It
girls.
was. I don't think it was Pearl. No, I don't think it was Pearl for me. It was the other. It wasn't the pearls because I remember the pearls were pink and green, uh, or whatever. But we were the black and silver Alpha Theta Phi.
Okay, okay,
There we
okay.
go. So I would go to step practice or go hang out with my friends and then go back and do my homework. So that was an off day. That might have happened like middle of the week, maybe on a Wednesday. But the other 4 or 5 days, I'm working throughout the school week, coming in late, doing my homework pretty late into the night, and then getting up the next morning and doing it all over again. That
See,
was tough.
now I'm thinking I had no excuse because no wonder my mama was with me.
Okay. Okay. Okay.
Because like you are really balancing as a high school student, balancing life
I wouldn't say
7
that though.
18.
I wouldn't say that as a high school student. So I'll share. So
Okay.
part of the reason why I worked a schedule that I had a schedule like that was because I actually became like the head of my household at a very young age. So I
Mhm.
wouldn't wish that on anybody. Like I want a teenager to have the time and capacity and ability to just go be a teenager. Um, but I essentially became head of household like super early because my mom wasn't physically feeling well. And of course, like she got other kids, it's me and my sister. Not that my sister was necessarily my responsibility, but in my mind, if there's anything that I can do to make myself or my sister like less of a burden to my mom right now so that she can like feel better or just be, worry about whatever it is that she worries about, then I was going to do that. And
Mhm.
I think being the youngest of six, I was very uniquely positioned to watch my siblings make mistakes, um, and like learn from them. Like I remember reading in a book some at one point, like maybe in elementary schools, like maybe a book of just sayings.
Mhm.
And it was like, a wise man learns from the mistakes of others and a fool learns for themselves. And so
Mhm.
I took that to heart like super
Yeah.
early. And like I was always, paying attention to my siblings. Because they were messing up. They were out here they were messing up no more or no less than like what a regular teenager would. But for me, it was like,
It hit hard.
well, I see, like it hit hard. It was like, I see this didn't work for you. I'm not gonna do it. I see this didn't work for you. I'm not gonna do that either. And then, of course, the neighborhood that I grew up in. Shout out to Myrtlewood.
Mhm.
But the neighborhood that I grew up in, living on the west side, it was just like I saw so many. You could see the best and the worst of people. In on the west side. And not only
Mhm.
just that, but like even working at Wendy's, like working in the service industry, you see the best that life can give to people and you see the worst that life can give to people. So I
Mhm.
was like super cognizant of that. Even when I was like dog tired, um, after a long day, like that's really me getting up at 7:30. That's like a 12 plus hour day
Right.
for me. Like me getting up at 7:30, having to be in school all day, and then having to be at work all night, and then having to come back. And I can't even go straight to bed. I gotta go
Do
do a
homework.
paper. Like, you know what I mean? I gotta do homework because I'm still a student first or whatever. So I don't want that for anybody. But I'm also very aware. And that's bettered me in my profession, which we'll talk about, I guess, later. But that's bettered me to advocate for those students because I know that there are other people who are in high school who have, far more responsibilities than what their peers may have. So
Mhm.
you know, that's been a big piece of my personal formation. But that was a long day for a high school. That's why I didn't care about being late, to be honest. Like
Well, we can see
that's
why.
why I didn't care so much about being late. Like,
We can see why. But I do think it's important, especially for educators, to be aware of these things with our
right,
students. While in a perfect ideal world, we want your
right,
mind to be there and be focused on your studies. Some of our babies, because they're all of our babies,
right,
they have the weight of the world on their shoulders. They have a
right,
lot more responsibilities than, like you pointed out, than their peers have.
right,
So that's why we can't sometimes. I know as educators, you get frustrated. Why wasn't this done? Why wasn't that done? But I do think listening to your story, that is important for educators to know.
right,
And so
right,
sometimes
right.
we just
I
have to
remember,
handle everybody with care. So we just don't
yeah,
know.
I remember seeing my final report card my senior year. Thank the
Mhm.
Lord, actually turned 18. Like like during that year because like when I saw the number of tardies I had, like up to the point where like these is y'all like this close to calling a truancy officer on me. I was just like, in the grand scheme of things for me, it was like even as a 17, 18-year-old at that point, I was like, yes, I'm late to school, but I showed up to school. Like, do you
Mhm.
want to punish me for being 15 minutes late, or are you going to let me use the rest of the 7 hours that you have with me, or however many hours it is, to the full capacity that I could be? But then also, to your point about educators understanding that, I think that's important to be what I've learned in the last year of being a trauma informed educator, because
Mhm.
like even I joked with you last time me and you talked. I used to sleep in class all the time. All the time. Like just I could be front row, front and center, and I would just fall asleep. But I'm tired. I'm truly tired. I'm truly tired. And the thing is, like, I remember after high school and talking about these things, like as I'm developing as an educator. Um, And I remember one of my professors one time saying, like, nobody asked. And I was like, the thing is, had someone have asked, I would have told them. But
Mhm.
nobody in my entire time at Gadsden City ever questioned. This girl sleep all day. This girl is late to class. Like they'll be like, why are you late? I'm late because I'm late. Like I'm late because I didn't get up on time. Well, why didn't you get up on time? Like I think as educators, sometimes we focus sometimes too much on the inconvenience of a person being late, and you
Mhm.
never really like peel it back enough and think about it enough that you're just like maybe something else larger is going on with this person to why they're chronically late all the time, because that was what it was for me. I'm chronically late because I was chronically up late. Like if you
Mhm.
went to bed at 2 o'clock every morning, you'd be late too.
Yeah.
So
Literally,
there's
that's
that.
not great for a
It's not
teenager to only be getting, what,
five.
5 hours of sleep?
Right, right.
Every night, and that's if you can go to sleep at that time, like, if
Yeah,
your body allows it, that is heavy.
it is.
So, I think we can kinda segue into this next question because I've kind of heard how life has shaped you and molded you, but how did Gadsden City prepare you to be where you are now?
Gaston City is one of those times in my life. So I'm gonna say high school in general, and then by proxy, Gaston City, since that's the high school I went to. I think for me, Gaston City taught me self advocacy, kind of in the worst way, like in the worst possible scenario. Well, not really the worst possible scenario. That's a little bit extreme. I'm gonna say they taught me self advocacy,
Okay.
which I wouldn't have known I would have needed as much as I did. And I would say that's not even just unique to Gaston City. I think it was unique to me being in Gaston City schools, period. Because a lot of people forget that I'm not originally from Gaston. My family is originally from Sylacauga, Alabama. And I moved to Gaston City schools in third grade when I was 8 years old. So I still say I'm from Gadsden because I spent most of my like formative years in Gadsden. However, given like the schedule that I just laid out for everybody, right? So that was my schedule from like 16 years old up until I graduated from Gadsden City. And so for me, I used to just like, I think it was one of those like choose your battles. That's the biggest thing that Gadsden City taught me was choose your battles. That's why I'm not about to argue with the front desk about why I'm late. The longer we take time to argue, the more late I'm going to be. So
Mhm.
like, just I'm late. I'm being accountable for the fact that I'm late. What do I need to do? Let me go to class.
Right.
Versus like me being in AP, for example, on the AP track, and um, it was what maybe five of us meaning five black students, five other black students on the AP track who I'd known mostly since middle school. It was the
Mhm.
same group of
Same
people,
little cluster of
and
us.
so for me, Gaston City prepared me because like I literally had to come into school every day and fight in some type of way. Like it was either I'm fighting with my teachers about something or fighting with my peers. Because believe it or not, it wasn't always cool to be smart. Um, like I think the I'm glad that it's becoming more socially acceptable, but it wasn't always cool to be smart. And then it's just that we were teenagers, so like everything is the end of the world to us, or everything is a big offense to us. And
Mhm.
so, like, peer navigating peer relationships and stuff at that time. So I think for me, the fact that I had these additional responsibilities to my family or to my home life, um, a lot of stuff would roll off of my back. But when it wasn't gonna roll off my back, it was one of those like choose your battles.
Mhm.
And I was gonna choose the battle. Like it was like it was at that time I wasn't walking away from too much of any type of disagreement. I'm gonna confront whoever it is, whatever it is, no matter the person, no matter the stature. And so I think for me, Gadsden City just kind of wore me out a little bit. Like by the time I got to undergrad, I was tired of fighting. Like I was just tired of fighting for real, for real. Like I was tired of
Mhm.
fighting, and it was like um I'm learning how to choose my battles. And not only that, but I'm learning how to choose my battles. And I'm learning that every type of disagreement doesn't have to be solved the same way. Like that there are multiple paths to conflict resolution. And I think
Mhm.
that was a big lesson that I got from my time at Gadsden City, that I was able to transfer into. I then went on to go to Auburn University. That was the fight of my life. But I then went on to go to college, and I was a first generation college student. So like all of that grit that I had picked up, being a student at Gadsden City, like it just amplified times 10, so that I could get to the finish line at Auburn. So I think that was the biggest thing for me.
And I do remember some of these battles you had to fight.
Okay,
Oh, yeah. You just don't know the half of
don't know the
it.
half.
If y'all could see, where Alethea has come from and where she is now, I cried at her Auburn graduation.
She
I
did. She did. She came to my
cried.
graduation. That was so sweet. Yes. I
I
too
am
cried at
here.
my
I am
graduation from
always
Auburn.
here for the success of Alethea Russell, soon to be doctor.
Soon to be Dr. Russell.
Always here for it. Because I know, like, I sat in classes with you from 6th grade
Right.
4th grade. So I
Right.
was
Right.
able to, see a little bit into this, and side note, my mom always takes a special interest in people who want better with their lives. So my
Right.
mom always asks about Alethea, and to this day, she
Yes.
always asks about
Shout out
Alethea.
to Bonita.
So she saw something special in Alethea, because she always
Yeah.
wanted to make sure that Alethea was going to do something with her life.
I appreciate it. Yes.
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 So, I do think that your story is inspiring. But realizing that I think it is important for students now to realize that they're not alone in the fight. Every situation isn't ideal.
Hmm.
Um, but that's what I love about the alumni association. It's just
Right.
this group of people, and everybody didn't come from the same walks of life, but us being able
Right.
to come together, um, united, to be able to give back to Gadsden City
Right.
in a way that shows like, hey, my situation is similar to yours. Everybody can learn from somebody. So
Absolutely.
thank you
Absolutely.
for share that tidbit about how Gadsden City, um, the experiences kind of um, gave you I forgot a word, gave you insight and a tool to be able to utilize now.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Um, so hey, we take, and there's a lesson in everything too for others when we're
It
looking at
is.
I can't find the positive, or
It is.
every experience just seems negative. There we If we look deep enough, we can find
Right.
something.
Right. Absolutely. I know that there are a lot of people who like don't like talking about high school because that was like the most challenging time of their lives, or like maybe they
Mhm.
dealt with a lot of bullying, or maybe they felt ostracized by their peers, and so they don't feel like they have a connection with Gadsden City anymore. And there are people who just were dealing like myself with life. So I
Mhm.
did not have time necessarily to do some of the formative social stuff that I would have liked to have done because I had other responsibilities. And like
Mhm.
whether or not your experience was extremely negative or extremely positive, and not to negate anybody's feelings because your feelings are about your experience are 100% yours, but
Absolutely.
like you can either use those things to fuel you into a forward direction, or you can let those things sit on you and keep you stagnant. And stagnation is extremely personal. And
Mhm.
so, like, when you make decisions that, like, because this happened to me or because this was the experience, like, I don't get to move forward, like, that's just not something that I am particularly aligned to do. And
Mhm.
I just don't find it helpful for me, like, as far as like my personal growth and my trajectory in general. But I know there are a lot of people who, they might have had a very difficult experience in high school, and so they still, don't feel connected. They don't like to talk about it. It's like a rough spot, and I 110% understand. But like for all intents and purposes, Gaston City possibly they probably could have done better. Not even probably, they could have done better, and they could have done more. But also, what was done, and me understanding that like we really do ask educators to be the sun, the moon, the universe,
Mhm.
Shadrach, Meshach, the Billy Goat. Like we ask them to be everything. We ask them to be everything to
Mhm.
students, and like
Mhm.
they are only one person. But
Mhm.
even though they're individually only one person, I think the unique thing about the school as a whole is that together they could be a better support.
Mhm.
You know what I mean? If they're just communicative about, like if all of my teachers who were teaching me in a given semester, like just sat down and was like, "Hey, anybody know this Alethea be sleep all the time? Like
Right.
she be sleepy. Does she sleep in your class or does she just sleep in my class?
Mhm.
You know what I mean? That type of thing. So like, let's see, if one of you have a better relationship with her than the other, to where you can ask her about it. So that way, at least they have the information, so that they'll know, how to handle the
Navigate.
situation moving
I'm
forward and navigate it. But like,
I'm I'm almost wondering if because you were such a bright student, in a way, if your sleeping was just dismissed. I mean, although, there were teachers who took a problem with it,
mhm,
if you were just dismissed because, oh, well, she performs in my class, so nobody ever takes the time
right,
to
right.
really get
I
down
did,
to what's going on.
I did think that that was part of it with some of the teachers, but I also recently learned about this in a book that I read, by Monique Morris. It's called Push Out. About like how sometimes students, when they get frustrated with the material, they just put their head down.
Mhm.
Um, and then sometimes the teacher might be like, sit your head up, put your head up. But then other times they just, they're so concerned with whatever else is going on in the room, that they just don't even engage the person with their head down. And then she coined the term. She basically was like, that's giving them permission to fail or giving them permission to quit. Because believe
Mhm.
it or not, that student is probably sitting there frustrated with their head down, and they want you to come tap them. And they, again, these are kids. We are teenagers. We don't have the emotional intelligence at that point,
Mhm.
oftentimes, to be able to articulate, this is what's frustrating me and this is what I need from you. And luckily, my time at Gadsden City, because it was so tumultuous, at different points and in different classes or whatever, I got the skill of being able to say, this is what I want and this is what I need from you, and this is how
Mhm.
you're not going to talk to me. Because
Mhm. 'Cause sometimes you do
let's
have to.
okay, because that's the thing, that like that cultural responsiveness just
Mhm.
wasn't always there. And then that connection and that kind of like attentiveness wasn't always there either. But then again, to your point, I was always performing, so it was like very much I could tell with some teachers. They were like, I don't care that you're sleeping, or I don't care that your head is
Mhm.
down. You come up to me and you ask me what you need to ask, and then that's it. And I don't give you crap work. I don't give you attitude during the day. I'm not fighting Like, as that's a W in their book, and I 110% understand that. But then also at the same time, there was a missed opportunity for the staff that saw me the most to
Mhm.
intervene when I was clearly overwhelmed with
Right.
stuff that was going on outside of school. So
Mhm. And it's heavy. It's a lot to
yeah,
have to take in. And I know you kind of touched on this with your experiences and how, because of life just lifing, you are where you are now. So, that being said, if you could go back, is there anything that you would change?
yes, there's only one thing that I would probably change.
Okay.
Um, I have always been a person who I take people's advice with a grain of salt, right? And
Okay.
one thing about me is you can't give me constructive criticism if you haven't constructed anything.
Fair.
So there's that. So the one thing that I would change is I had a teacher, most of us all had Mr. Hall for driver's
Driver's
ed. So shout out to Mr. Hall. But Mr. Hall was one of the biggest HBCU enthusiasts in our school,
yes.
at least in my interactions. And Mr. Hall was encouraging me to apply to Alabama A&M.
Go Bulldogs.
And okay, and now that I am where I am and I work in higher education and I see how, college choice and college access is really determined by guidance counselors.
Mhm.
This breaks my heart, but Mr. Hall was encouraging me, and then a guidance counselor at the time discouraged me from applying to HBCUs.
Mm.
So, um, yeah, there's not really, I can't necessarily say positively or negatively whether or not me not choosing to apply or choosing to go to any of the HBCUs, because I was a first generation student and I didn't learn about really the rich history of HBCUs in Alabama that we had until I was well into my master's program. It kind of was like perimeter for me throughout undergrad, but I didn't get into like the history and the facts and figures of the situation until I started my higher education program. And so for me, I think for me, maybe that's the only point that I would intervene and like tell my younger self, go ask somebody else. Like just go ask someone else about this so that so that I would have more information to make a better informed decision. And my decision might have still been the same, but at least I would feel better knowing that I did my due diligence to make the decision for myself and not have allowed someone else to completely discourage me based off of one little, thing that they do about one particular school. And
Right.
so that's probably the only thing I would change. Other than that,
Mm.
I don't think I would have changed anything because I'm low key to shit now. Not wait, fuck. CJ,
You
edit that
are
out.
the prime example for the teachers who accuse you of plagiarism, like.
So, oh yeah, yeah. So like, yeah, that's it. Like,
Plagiarism where?
yeah,
What?
yeah. We'll talk about that. We're gonna get into. We're gonna talk about that.
So,
Not on some. I hate them or anything, but
look at me
yeah,
now. Look at me now.
mm, it's
Um,
hard.
it
Like, there were a lot of points in my. That's the thing. Like, most of my tension with Gadsden City didn't even come from my peers. Like most people, navigate peer relationships differently because it's like drama, like teenage drama,
mhm,
just teenage drama, like who likes who doesn't like who, this person's dating this person. And my biggest tension was always with my teachers, in particular. And like, I'm glad that you brought up the plagiarism incident because I remember um, rehashing this with a faculty member in my master's program about how that was the second time that they had happened to me where a teacher accused me of plagiarism with no evidence, other than that they felt like I didn't write the way that I speak. First and foremost, nobody speaks like anybody in the Scarlet Letter. It is the 21st
Yeah.
century. Okay, which I believe is what I said when that particular accusation came. But not only just that, but it was like holding them accountable for how they handled the allegation, because I recall that particular instructor, the way that they deciphered whether or not I plagiarized or not was to call me in front of the class and flip through my paper and ask me random vocabulary questions. And so it was just like,
Ooh, the way in which that was
it
handled
was
was
just like, and had you have truly, been concerned that I plagiarized, I felt like that was a parent teacher meeting that should have happened. Not you bring me up in front of my peers and try to
that's like
humiliate me in front of my
a
peers.
child. That's a
Like, you
child.
know what I mean? Like, so it was that. And so that's my thing about like when I'm saying that I used to have to come into Gadsden City and fight all the time. Like it's
Mhm.
stuff like that where it's very clear that like this particular instructor has a very limited view of what they think me as a person can do, whether that's rooted in racial bias or that's
Mhm.
socioeconomic bias, whatever it is, that you have this very limited perspective of what I can or cannot do, that you think I don't know what the word celibacy means. And you didn't think enough about the situation to invite my mom into the conversation to like defend me or to ask whatever questions that you really had to ask. And that was the way you decided to handle it. So it was just like, that's what I mean to be specific to the audience about like I had to fight every day. I didn't physically have to put my hands on anybody. I just had to come in and defend my intelligence every day to teachers. And I didn't appreciate that. And then
Mhm.
it was like, I'm coming in and I'm defending my intelligence to teachers every day, even though I'm producing. I'm producing on par with my peers in the class.
Better
And
than
for some reason, like, and better than some of them. And for some reason, you still, you know, have a bone to pick with me, but then it's an issue if I pick the bone back.
that.
So
And
that's
I
what
do
I mean. Like,
it was a problem then, and I'm pretty sure there are remnants still around. But
mm-hmm,
that's a deeper rooted issue
mm-hmm,
that I definitely feel like we should discuss because
absolutely,
it's a deeper rooted trend
absolutely.
that has it didn't just start with you.
It
It
didn't.
didn't
It
just start
absolutely
with
didn't. It absolutely
um
didn't. No.
and it's it's the reason why, when you talked about we can either allow these things to fuel us or we can become stagnant. I think it's the reason why a lot of people became stagnant, because
Yeah.
they didn't have that person in their corner. Because like we said, everybody's home life is not ideal. So
Right.
then to get
Right.
that times two magnified at school with your educator, your teacher
Right.
telling you, I don't believe you're capable of producing
Right,
this.
right, right. And then when you think about it, like your teachers have my at that point in my life, Gaston City had more time, more of my time than my mom did. Like I'm at Gaston City from 8 to 3, and then I'm
Mhm.
at work from 4 to 6. My mom asleep by the time I get back. So
Mhm.
like them little 3 hours that I'm up doing my homework, she not even up. She might catch me flying out the house at 7:30. Like
Mhm.
so, it was like you have the most time with me, and then like you also
Hmm.
spending so much time
Hating.
doing what you're doing. So yeah, and I remember that I alluded to this when I interviewed you, but there was one semester in particular where I decided to drop my AP, one of my AP classes, so I could just go to a regular advanced class. I just wanted to be regular because I was so
Mhm.
tired. I was literally, it wasn't even just like the workload of being an AP student because I was managing barely, but I was managing. But it was like I'm tired of going into this classroom and having to defend that I'm smart. I've never, well, I wouldn't say I have never because it's been like that since I was in at it's been like this since I got to Gadsden City Schools.
Mhm.
But it was just like, if given the choice between clowning in a less rigorous class with my friends and coming in here and having to argue with somebody about a perspective that I picked up from a book, that you don't think is valid because it's not the same perspective as, someone else,
And you didn't do it to any other student that we clearly
and you
can see?
didn't do it to anybody, it was just like, you know, okay. Okay. But I'm very much to that point. Like, if you tell me I can't do something, I'ma do it.
Mhm.
I'ma just go do it. Like, and then we'll talk about it later. Like, let's see if I can't do what you said I can't do. Because I don't think anybody ever specifically said that I couldn't go to college or that I couldn't do XYZ. But I do think it was the way those little things like stacked up where they were questioning whether or not something was accurate, like, or something that I said, and this is all, and who was teaching curriculum and who determines what curriculum is now that I'm, am older and I've studied these types of things, um, or what fits into this cookie cutter um, notion of whatever topic we're going over. Like, I remember one time writing about Frank Lucas from American
Mhm.
Gangster, from American Gangster for an assignment, and having a note written on there that he wasn't an appropriate character. He wasn't an appropriate character for the thing that we were doing. And I said I made my points. He was a Byron. I think it was a Byronic hero or something like that. But I
Mhm.
made excellent points about who he was, and this was relevant to me at the time because that was one of my favorite movies at the time. So whatever.
Mhm.
And like doing like lyric analysis and using like Lil Wayne lyrics versus
Mhm.
something else on an assignment and being like, this wasn't an appropriate song for the assignment. You said whatever song I wanted to. If you didn't
Right.
want me to use this one, you should have been more specific.
More specific.
And so it was like stuff like that where it was like, it wasn't just about curriculum, but like the way that I'm interpreting curriculum and the way that I'm bringing myself, my authentic self, into
Mhm.
my experiences and learning in a way that my teachers weren't doing for me. And then my teachers taking that opportunity to tell me that my experiences were not like appropriate for whatever
Mhm.
we were studying. So it was just that. It was that for me. And like, I hope it's better.
I
And even
do.
if it's not better, I got time. So
We all
we
got time. We grown
got
up now.
time to make
We're ready
it
to have some grown up discussion.
better.
And there are a lot of people. I personally handpick you. Because there is no way that your bias
Mhm.
should have just been that outward.
Right. That
But it's just that obvious and just
right.
that you just allow it to, but they
Right.
not think you did anything wrong.
Yeah. 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 So I mean, I took one for the AP team.
You did. And well, for those who don't know, when Alethea alluded to there being 5 of us, I think it was 4. Was it 4 of us or 5?
It was definitely less than 5
Okay.
because it
She
was the
ended up
same 3
being
of us from Gadsden Middle School.
yes, middle. She ended up being the
Mhm.
only one who graduated on the AP track, which I do
Yep.
think needs some
Justice has not been served in that, so
justice has not been served.
it's not.
I'm still a little bitter about that. But anyway, this is your interview, so I won't take over. So, yes, Alethea ended up being the only one who walked across that stage on graduation day with AP on only Black student
Black
who
per
walked
yeah.
across the stage with AP honors on that day. So,
Shout out to the ones.
who didn't have a class reunion. But we're going to skip along. We're going to skip along here. All right. If you could give your senior self one piece of advice, what would you say?
Uh, keep living. Like that's probably what I would say. Because like again, like we remember like when you're young, every obstacle feels like it's the obstacle. This is the one thing that's gonna take me out. This is it. Like this is it. This is the thing. This is the bad grade that's gonna
Mhm,
ruin the rest of my future. This is the missed opportunity. This is you know what I mean? So it
mhm,
was a lot of that type of stuff for me. And not to say that those things weren't catastrophic in their right in that particular time, but for me, some days it was just hard to like keep going, just keep
mhm,
going. And like you know how like the older people in my family would always say this to me, like when I'd be like, "Oh, I'm tired" or whatever. They like, "Keep living," you know what I mean? And they meant it kind of snarky, like you too young to be tired, or you too young to whatever. But it really was. It did become like a mantra for me as I started going through like undergrad and stuff. Like it'd be like, "You think this is hard? Keep living." But that also gave me hope because it's like a pain threshold almost. You know what I mean? Like it's like if I know that I was capable of getting through this challenging experience, like nothing else will be this challenging for me again. Like I saw a
mhm,
clip of a locker room speech where she was like, "Do you think that things get easier? Or do you think that you handle hard things better?" And like I started handling hard things better. And that's like you can't do that if you don't keep living. So I would say I would just do a quick little lean down and say, keep living.
mhm,
But I
because it's
also would tell myself, stop getting relaxers too, because girl, my hair was tore up back then. Go ahead. Go I would also I would also want to tell myself that I was gonna have two ugly phases. It looked like I went through puberty 3 times. Like
Girl.
I just needed to give myself a heads up because I was not prepared. Okay. I was
And
just
I don't
out
listen,
here
I don't look
changing.
like, now I thought I was supposed to have a glow up.
Okay, yes, looking for the glow up, and my glow up didn't happen until like I was child. I'm out here 24 wearing braces. My staff headshots look like I'm 12. I work full time. I'm a full time professional at a university, and I'm looking like a 12-year-old all over again. So I was just like, when is this gonna end?
When does it
So
happen?
that's a trivial thing I would tell myself is like, girl, it's gonna be a minute. But
That's thank you. Thank you.
it's
I'm
gonna be
glad
a
I've
minute. So
gotten
for
through
all of you
it.
who are listening, you know, we go through multiple metaphor. What is it? Metamorphosis. We go through multiple. Everybody don't get it right the first time,
You know,
and that's fine. So,
but keep living.
yeah. Well, we keep living.
Keep
We gotta keep
living.
living.
Because when we keep living, we start to see the larger scale.
Yes,
We see the larger
yes,
scale. So the
absolutely.
things that were the word you catastrophic to us at that point,
Right.
if we keep on living, we look back and we say that was
That was such a tiny thing. That was
didn't
such a
even matter that
tiny,
much.
tiny thing. So yeah,
Yes.
110%.
Mhm. Absolutely. So that's some good pieces of advice and a little humorous, but I think it matters so much, especially now, where more people like we take more pride in our appearance. That for some people that defines them. So like when,
Mhm.
when we're going through our little maybe ugly stages in high school or what we feel are ugly.
Mhm.
I mean,
What we
it's
feel are
personal
ugly
to
stages.
us.
Mhm.
And other people might just look and think like you're the most gorgeous thing that they've ever seen, but to
Right.
us, this is not my prime. Which good thing is not.
Okay.
We don't want to be reliving glory days. Like let it go. But anyway, when more people are, I think it's important for us to realize, like, honey, it is okay. The metamorphosis process just hasn't peaked yet. You're going
Mhm.
through it. It's a cycle. And
Absolutely.
sometimes it just has to
Especially young
cycle.
women. Young women, I
Mhm.
feel like we feel it different. Like it's like,
We
huh.
do. If someone you knew well from high school were to describe you in 3 words, what do you think they would be, and how accurate would those words be today?
Um, I definitely think. a person who knew me well in high school would say I was a hustler, and that's definitely true
That's
today.
true.
Um, they would also probably say, um, probably something like, "Oh, I'm smart." That's also still
That's
true.
true. Mhm.
And they would probably say I was funny. And let me tell you something. My
Also
back hurts. My back hurts from carrying the comedic gene in in my whole family. Like I'm hilarious. I have stepped into I have stepped into my funny girl season. And I say this, and all of my things are the same, but I want to say, like, I remember when it was like, in a lot of ways, I'm very different. I'm a lot more even tempered than I was back in 2008 through 2011.
Mhm.
Um, Back then, pop. That was first response was I'm pop you or I'm getting ready to pop you. Now it's not like that, but that's also like just emotional maturity and stuff like
Yeah.
that. And the core of who I was always there. I just had to refine, some things and like learn to manage my emotions better, and not mismanage or not mismanage but not misname my emotions. Like even today, I don't a typical saying that we often use, like, "Oh, is that made me so mad?"
Mhm.
And that's really, we might even not really mean mad.
Yeah. Mhm.
But for me, knowing that my background and my history or whatever in the past, like I used to use anger as a first response to everything. Like anger fueled my bravery. Like a lot of times, like I think a lot of altercations that happened, whether it was me and another student or me and another teacher, or me and a person in the neighborhood, like people would be like, "Oh, she went off," or whatever. And like in hindsight, it was like some of those could have been like handled differently had I channeled a different emotion, but anger fueled my bravery back then. But now I know that I can be brave without being angry. Or I can be upset without being angry. Or I can just genuinely be hurt by something without having to be angry. So I think all those core things that I listed, that a person who was close to me would have known, are still true, because like you don't have to change every single thing about yourself,
Right.
coming out of high school. Like you are your core person. You just got to figure out some of the stuff got to be taken off. Like some of
Mhm.
the layers have to be taken off over time, and that happens over time. So keep living.
Yes.
But yeah, I think that's pretty much what everybody would say. I'm like Kiki Palmer. She calls herself Kiki Keep a Job Palmer.
And she does. She
That's because she keeps a job.
she does.
But that's me. And she's the same age as us, and that just trips me out. But
I know.
because why we not millionaires?
So we're gonna fast forward from the past into present day, Alethea. And so remember why I said we were gonna stick a pin
Oh, we
in
did.
in what you're doing? Yes, we definitely want to know. So tell us more about what you do. How did you end up in this career choice? We want to know it all. So
Okay.
let us hear.
All right. So boom. Okay. So I'm a doctoral student. I study at Indiana University, Bloomington, and I study higher education and student affairs. So that's basically, post secondary education or college students. I study college students and the people that manage college students and the issues that affect students who go to college. My primary interest, is in making education equitable and attainable for everybody, who wants to get an education. Let me be clear. And not only that, but making post secondary education, um, accessible, meaning maybe a 4-year college is not the thing for you, but any schooling after you leave high school is post secondary education, whether it's a certificate, whether you took a few classes here and there, whether it's an associate's, whether it's whatever. Like I just want anyone who wants access to any of those things to be able to have them, to be able to afford them, to be able to improve the economic mobility of their families, or their selves, in general, and not have a terrible time doing it. Like I want it to be, you know, we don't set up unnecessary hurdles for people to do those types of things and to continue to be a lifelong learner. So that's what I study, and that's what I want. That's why I study what I want. And um, part of that for me now is I hold a graduate assistantship. This is what basically pays for me to be here in Indiana, as a student anyway. So it pays my tuition. So I have an assistantship with NESE, which is the National Survey of Student Engagement, where I do research projects here and there, but it's basically a national survey of college students about their engagement experiences. So I work on that, kind of on a client management side, and then we also do some. I do a little bit of not just research projects with the data set, but we also do some things where like item revisions, changing modules to be more inclusive and reflective of the current population of students who's in colleges today. But then also I also am a public policy intern at the Lumina Foundation, which is based in Indianapolis. And so Lumina Foundation it's a nonprofit education foundation. Um, it used to be a student loan company. So back when maybe 2000 the 2008 recession hit, like a lot of student loan servicers collapsed, and they converted themselves into nonprofits. And so they no longer hold student loan debt. I believe Lumina is one of those um, that did that. And so my work with them is basically looking at public policy, and public policy as it affects higher education. That could be how your state or your local government funds education in the state. Whether or not, for example, in Alabama, whether or not KIV allots XYZ amount of money to public colleges in Alabama, whether or not there are Alabama state grants that can go to Pell eligible students or other, student populations that need, financial assistance to go to college. Those types of things, but it's also those like really minute things that you don't really think about, like whether or not colleges are actually um, auditing their degrees. So a lot of sometimes what we found is like we'll have students who have like 130 credit hours, but they don't have a degree. When a typical 4-year degree is 120 credit hours.
Mhm,
So it's like, how do we get there? Or a student who's been in school for 4 years, off and on,
mhm,
but doesn't have um, any type of credential that they can take to an employer and say, hey, this is the credential, this is the skill that I have, and you need to pay me accordingly. And that's a huge issue, right? Because imagine how many people go to a 4-year college and maybe they stay for 2 years and then they leave,
mhm.
and they can't finish. Well, they just did 2 years and don't have anything to show for it. Versus if they would have gone to a community college and done 2 years, they would have had an associate's degree to show for
Mhm.
it. And
Right.
so it's stuff like that, making sure that micro credentialing um, can become a norm across the state, not even just the state of Alabama, but just across the country. Um, so employment aligned credentials. So I look at that type of stuff, essentially, in my public policy work.
We need that so much. We do, like, I'm just in awe because I know that there are people who have to do these things, but I don't know. I don't know who I thought was doing the grunt work, um, or if it was even being done.
Right. Right.
So, I am happy to know that those efforts are out there and that there are people like yourself who are dedicated and willing to do the work because it is definitely needed. Um,
Right.
yes. So people know like
Mm-hmm.
there are options out here.
Mm-hmm.
And even
There
as
are options.
someone who is degreed times 2 and working on a third degree, I realize like there are skills that I don't have that would have been beneficial, as far as what you're discussing here. That would have been
Right.
beneficial. Uh, being able to
Absolutely.
negotiate these things. You have this experience. How can it translate into the working world?
Right.
So that's
Yeah.
commendable and necessary
Absolutely.
entity.
Absolutely.
So good thing, well, not good that they collapsed, but good thing that they turned their effort into a positive spin. Um, but hey, something positive came out of a negative. So
Something okay, because
we were going through a hard time in
we're going through a hard
2008,
time.
but
Yeah, there are a lot of education foundations
mhm.
that converted from being student loan
I had
servicers
no idea. So they were able to
to
spin the
being
block and at
nonprofit.
least do something positive because they did
Mm-hmm.
go from
Yep.
all these, when you first mentioned student loans, my head went, but maybe they realized it
We on the
and
wrong
they
side.
decided to spin the block
Spin the
back.
block.
So good. I'm happy to know that that work is being done. So please keep on with it. And hopefully those efforts grow. So tell us about a moment that transformed your thinking, your life trajectory, or had a major impact on your life.
Eighth grade. I ain't gonna say no names or point no
Like I
elbows.
already know, but
But you probably already know what I'm gonna say. Eighth grade was the first time that I was accused of plagiarism
Mhm,
on an assignment because I didn't write the way these are verbatim the words. Like you don't talk like this, so I didn't expect you to write like this. Um and like that was a really negative experience for me and it was confusing too. And the unfortunate reality for me was that, I'm one of, several, I guess, other Black students around the world who had to learn very early that, like, there are people who don't believe that we are capable. And it has nothing to do with you and everything to do with that other person.
mhm,
But that particular experience for me, bringing home a zero and telling my mom what happened was like, it was wild, but it also shifted things for me in a way where it was a double-edged sword, right? So my mom, I hope she doesn't mind me sharing this, and I'm gonna share it anyway. But my mom didn't finish high school, so it was really important for her that all of her kids finished high school. And so that at that point, it was a turning point for me and my mom because like my mom came to my defense in the best way she knew how.
mhm.
Okay. Um and y'all know if anybody reading this or watching this knows my mama, y'all know my mom is she different. But seeing my mom advocate for me, even when she wasn't like, even when she wasn't sure how to navigate like the education system. Like, like I always talk about how like your mom used to tell you to tell me stuff so that I knew to go do something like take my ACTs or whatever.
Mhm,
Uh that type of stuff. My mom didn't know to tell me to be doing those things. Like she just didn't that just wasn't her, it wasn't her ministry. But what she did do was she pushed me to be able to like defend myself. Not even just defend myself, but she taught me how to like speak up. Don't be scared. You get 0% of stuff that you don't ask for.
right.
And not only that, but the double edged sword about that was, you know, me coming from where we came from, so Sylacauga to Gadsden, where in Sylacauga at first we didn't even have a talented and gifted program for me, so I was just getting in trouble. Like they were just writing me up because they were like,
Mhm,
she talking all the time, she don't pay attention, she won't be still, that type of stuff. And then it was like, no, it's not that she's bad, she's just bored. Like
right.
she's finishing her work in 3 minutes when you gave her 15. Like you
Mhm,
need to occupy her for the last 12 minutes.
right.
And so what transpired with us in eighth grade, after that incident happened, I think that was the first time my mom had the had the Papa Pope conversation with me. The you got to work twice as hard to get half conversation.
Mhm.
And like that was a turning point for me that like it's a double-edged sword because in a lot of ways I think it hindered me like mentally. Like it kind of reinforced in the back of my mind, if I'm not producing, then I'm not doing well.
Mhm.
And so like I have had to like, scale that back a little bit, but also it gave me like a certain level of armor to be able to navigate being, an AP student, navigate being an undergraduate at a predominantly white institution. I went and worked for and did my master's at another predominantly white institution. And look at me again here in Indiana. Yet another one, right? So I think I got like a cultural competency, um, not only just from my mom, but from dealing with, positive and negative, situations in school throughout my time at Gadsden City and beyond that like have greatly shaped, you know, what I ended up doing because I went to school for journalism while I was in undergrad at Auburn, and it's still a helpful skill. It's still, don't get me wrong, it's still a helpful skill. It's a useful skill. I'm a much better creator, thinker, writer, all those things, very faceted. But my experience in undergrad was so similar to my experience at Gadsden City, just like ramped up a little bit because the stakes were higher and I was paying for it.
Yes.
That was I remember sitting somewhere and being like, it shouldn't be this hard to go to school.
Not at all.
Like, I just want to go to school. And when I, said that to myself, then it dawned on me that there were these people who were uniquely positioned at my school who were supposed to be servicing me and helping me and guiding me, and who had very, very, very strong impacts on me career wise. And I was like, I want to be one of those people. If I can be one of those people, I will make going to school much less difficult for possibly like, the impact is exponential.
Mhm.
And so for me, it was like, it all started from that one big blow up in middle school. And then my mom basically having this conversation with me. And that just changed, I don't know. It was something about like that whole conversation, that whole battle with that situation was like my mom's time to be like, it's time for you to plant your feet because you got to duke this out the rest of the time. And
Mhm.
that was like a big shift for me that like transferred into other areas of my life.
That's heavy. It's heavy. Uh,
It is. It is. It
but
is.
it
But
is.
that's the nature. That's the
The
nature of the
nature of
experience. This is a heavy Titan talk, y'all. I'm sorry.
it is.
This is a heavy Titan talk because my experience with Gadsden City and Gadsden City schools was a heavy and difficult experience.
Mhm.
And like even though it was a heavy and difficult experience, I still think that there's promise there. I still think that there's possibility there. And I still think there's opportunity there.
Mhm.
And if we got to get through some ugly stuff to get to that, then we just gonna get through the ugly stuff. I'm gonna plant my feet, and we gonna get through the ugly stuff.
Yeah.
So, you know,
There's always, like you said, possibilities, potential. Um,
hmm
and the thing about it is, we can only speak from a Gadsden City
right.
perspective. You've got a little bit more perspective being that you came from Chicago for, a few
hmm
short years, but we can only speak from a Gadsden City Schools perspective.
Right.
But I don't believe Gadsden City Schools is the only school system
Right.
that
Right.
needs
Right.
a little care, a little rub
Yeah.
in the right direction. And
Yeah.
it's definitely not um all of the people, but we don't realize how lasting these
Right.
impacts are, especially the negative
Right.
ones,
hmm
especially the negative ones.
hmm
I can, and I don't know if it's just like a human trait or characteristic, but I can immediately tell you my negative experiences.
Absolutely. And then it's like it takes a little bit more for me to have to dig
Mhm.
up something positive because like
Yes. And
Because
mine
when it was
started
negative,
early
it was like,
on in life, so I didn't
mm-hmm.
necessarily
Yeah.
have, Gadsden City wasn't really a highlight for me, but,
Mm-hmm.
like, in elementary school, my negative experiences started there. So, like, where you're
Yeah.
saying your
Mm-hmm.
mom had this talk with you in high school, my mom had to have that talk with me in elementary school.
Mm-hmm. And
So,
I want to say, like, first of all, shout out to Ruby. But I want to say, like, I think my mom did what she had to do when we was in
Mhm,
elementary school too. It just was
mhm,
like, she still had other kids to deal with at that time too.
right.
Like, so by the time I got to eighth grade, it was like, clearly you on a different path than the rest of your siblings, and I ain't never done this before. Um,
I'm gonna try
so
my
you gonna
best.
have to, you know what I mean? Like, I ain't never had my mom had never had to do the amount of stuff that she had to do or
Mhm,
confront the amount of teachers that she had to confront about any of her other kids until it was me. So it was like, she was new to this too. So she was doing the
mhm,
best that she could with what she knew how to do. But then that was why that conversation was so important for me, because she was
mhm.
like, you gotta be willing to advocate for yourself even when I'm not able to, because I don't understand a lot of the stuff that's like going on for you. You know what I
Mm,
mean?
and
So
that's what's challenging too because, one, we feel like our parents know everything, and
absolutely.
and then so having to realize, like, this is a situation where my parent doesn't know how to navigate, but neither do I.
Hmm.
So, like, for
Yes.
you to
Yes.
advocate for yourself, but
Absolutely.
neither do I, and then if I I wanna call you a child, you're not a child, you're a young, you were a teenager at the time,
Yeah.
but still
Hmm.
young in comparison to
Hmm.
an adult, but even
Hmm.
still, especially being from the South, advocating for yourself can look a lot like disrespect
Disrespect.
in other people's eyes.
There
Um,
we go.
so there in itself lies another
Right.
challenge.
Yeah. Absolutely. So that's what I'm saying. Like, going to school and having to fight for yourself or whatever. I'm sure the disciplinary records show, like, what do they call it, like insubordination or something like that, or
Whatever it is,
just
honey, they
like
can
whatever
take
it
those
was. It was like that
disciplinary
type of stuff.
records and
You know
show.
what I mean? And it's like, it's not that I'm being disrespectful. It's just that, like, in my house at home, my mom says everybody has to be respectful to each other.
Mhm,
And so, like, if you talking to me this way, you not being respectful to me
mhm.
or whatever. And
But
what
you know
you
what
want me
I've
to do
started
about
to
it? You know
realize
what I
as an
mean?
adult, respect is subjective.
It's
Respect
subjective. It's very
and
subjective.
disrespect, they are very subjective.
It is. It really is. So, yeah, I'm glad that you brought that up, because like a lot of the advocacy for me or whatever coming from me because of how old I was, I could have literally called my mom from the bathroom and said, "Come up to the school and say this, this, and this," and it would have been received differently than had I said it myself. Because, like, to a teacher, understandably, I'm not your peer.
Right.
So, you're not going to talk to me XYZ type of way. But if my mom came up here and said this, it's a different story. Like, because
Mhm.
now for some reason you see them as your equal. And I want that to be gone. Like,
It
I
should.
want us to, I want us to just squash that.
It
Because,
needs
I mean, I'm not even going to hold you, because, like, I was 23, 24 working at UA, and I had like 18-year-olds, 17, 18-year-olds who I supervised. And I would have to say, I'm not your peer all the time, because they really thought I was there. I'm not your peer. But it was a completely different type of, conversation at that
mhm,
point for me, because it was just like, I'm not your peer, so you can't say certain things to me that you would say to your friends. Like, I just want you to remember that, even though we
mhm,
have a short age distance between us, that, like, we're not friends. This is a professional relationship
mhm.
or whatever. And I just, even if a teacher would have told me, said it that way, you know,
It may have
when we
been
were in high
perceived a
school,
little bit
like, it,
differently.
it might have been different. Like,
You may have been
but
receptive to that.
I might have, but, like, that wasn't,
That wasn't what was
that
done.
just, I don't think that's just how, I don't think that's how teachers at that time were trained to be.
They
So,
weren't, and I remember, specifically in my career field, I work with communication.
Mm.
Regardless of whether you're writing it, we're pointing, doing whatever. And so a lot of me looks at a lot of you. I look at body language,
Mm.
and I take those things in. And I remember having a conversation with a teacher, and with
Mhm.
the kid's parent. Two totally different things were being perceived, and the teacher is like, he is being disrespectful. Me, one, that's a kid. Um, but like for the teacher, she felt X, Y, and Z, and I had to tell her like, no, they're simply communicating. When you take your personal
Mhm.
emotions out of these
Out.
situations, out of these scenarios, you realize they just communicated. Um,
Mhm.
and a lot of my work deals with cultural responsiveness, like being culturally
Yeah.
competent, and realizing that even within our culture, saying no. You ask somebody a question, and because they didn't respond with yes the way you wanted to, they said no, they were being disrespectful. That's not how this works. It's not how this works at all. So a lot of that is still
Yeah,
ingrained, and it's not just
absolutely.
our it's in society, it's in us going to
Mhm.
school, and it makes it challenging to be able to advocate for yourself, because when I
Right.
do tell you I don't like that, now I'm the bad person.
Yes, I'm disrespectful. Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah,
So it's a lot of work to be
that's
done. So I
that's
do.
it.
I'm glad you pointed that out. But it's something that I actually work with, and I like to educate parents and even some of my clients. I educate them on that because I'm looking at a person as a whole. My
Mhm.
ultimate goal in life is for them to communicate. I don't care what it is. Even when I'm working with them, if they tell me no, guess what I do? I immediately stop.
That's it.
That's it.
Yeah, that's it.
No disrespect. We can come back and clean it up later. We can come add no ma'am later. But you told
Right,
me no.
right. But we just got you to know, and we're gonna take the W.
And so they build on themselves, and so as a whole, it's a cultural, like, well, yes, it's a cultural thing. But
Yeah,
it's ingrained. It's ingrained everywhere. And like
absolutely.
when I say like that, you have overcome a lot. You've overcome
Oh
a
yeah,
lot, because we did now people are a little bit more accepting because we've been educated a little bit more.
yeah.
But we were in school over 10 years ago, and
Mhm.
our educators were, we still had a lot of baby boomers as educators, Gen Xers,
Yeah,
and that's
yeah,
just a no-go.
yeah.
No.
Complete yin and yang, and that's
No. And
mm,
sometimes it can be understood by others, and then sometimes it's not. So like we're dealing
yeah.
with a lot of bias, racial bias,
Mhm.
and other types of biases. So even still,
Yeah.
it was because they did not feel that you should be where you are. It was
Right.
gonna be a whole lot of other problems. So needless to say, I'm saying all this to say like that you overcame a lot.
Mhm.
So it wasn't just academic challenges. It was
Right.
other challenges on top of advocating, speaking up. It was all of these.
Yeah.
Oh,
Every year, new teacher, me coming in, like, which one of these gonna be the problem this year?
so it's
Or having the same teacher like multiple times over the
like,
course of it. So it's like I'm still having to interact with this same teacher who said or did something hurtful in ninth grade, and it's been 3 more years later. I still have to go to this person's class, and that's not
mhm,
something I have control over. So it's
mhm.
like,
And
yeah.
then even still, when you're learning to advocate for yourself, like you mentioned earlier, choosing your battles, because
Hmm.
ultimately this person is still determining my grade.
Right.
And a
Right.
lot, like even at the collegiate level, I mean, now, I'm because it's my money now. I'm definitely going to challenge you. Like, we're gonna go sit at the
Okay.
dean's office, and you about to break this down to me.
Mhm.
why this occurred. But like, in the school system and at the high school level, I mean, you can challenge them, but ultimately, I just don't like the style of writing, and they can.
Yeah.
So there, I'm not gonna give you a 100. I'm giving you a 97.
Mhm. Yeah. And
And that's it.
that was the experience.
That was
Yeah.
it. So even still learning your battles and just, I don't want to cause like most of us, we don't go to school looking for drama, not with
That
anybody.
part.
Most people
Okay, and I
don't
gotta
want
be here all
those things.
day.
Yes, like
I gotta be
I
here all
don't
day.
I don't want any tension with anyone, especially as a
Mm,
high school student. You're looking at these teachers because they're supposed to be able to help guide you and help you navigate through life, and yet
right.
they're the ones who are placing the obstacles there. So we're gonna move on to the next thing because I think, what have you learned about yourself since you left Gadsden City High?
I think I've learned that I can have uh an emotional spectrum that isn't 0 to rage,
I love the
because
spectrum.
that's where I was. Like, you know what I mean? Like, I over the last 11 years have learned, like, I it's okay for me to have feelings
Hmm.
and, like, to name those feelings, like, oh, this is shame, oh, this is anger, oh, this is not anger, this is just frustration.
Hmm.
You know what I mean? Because back then I didn't have the emotional intelligence or the toolkit to be able to say this was this. And I will say too, to, for all intents and purposes, shout out to my mom, but, like, you know
We couldn't
when
always
you're
express
the
emotions
youngest,
the way
you
we
know what I mean? Yeah, I couldn't express the things even at home the way that I wanted to, and stuff, whether it's between my mom or my siblings or whatever. Because, I can't be a punk,
that can't be a punk. And what
or
you
whatever.
mad for?
What you mad for? You got an attitude or whatever, all that type of stuff. For you to fix your attitude, fix your face,
Mhm.
this is my face. This is the face that you birthed me with, woman. But that type of stuff, right? Like, I just didn't feel like I had the ability or the opportunity to experience, like, emotions the way that a regular teenager would, because I had so much responsibility too. And even, like, taking on those responsibilities and then, like, coming home and being tired. Like, it's me at 1 a.m. working through some trig homework or
Mhm.
whatever, and I'm frustrated with the problem because I don't remember how to get the answer. But I also know my mom doesn't know the answer, and it's also 1 o'clock in the morning. I'm not gonna wake her up at 1 o'clock in the morning to
Right.
ask her for help. Um, but now this is a frustration that I have to work through in the middle of the night by myself, right? Um, so it's like that type of stuff. Like, I just didn't feel like I had the opportunity to experience the full spectrum of emotions and then, like,
Mhm.
call it what it was and then move on. And so I just had this rut of, like, everything just made me angry. Everything just made me frustrated. And so, yeah, I think that would probably be it for me.
Okay. I do, and I love the spectrum analogy there. I mean,
Yes.
what did you say? Keep living, because I'm coming to find out that a lot of things in life are on a spectrum. It's
It
not,
is.
everything
It's a
isn't
spectrum.
linear. It's,
It's it's this
yeah.
big, and I might be here, and then I might be there, I might be here, like, and
Right.
that's fine, but just I think the longer we keep living and the more we keep living intentionally,
Mhm.
the more we'll be able to see, like, the bigger picture and a larger perspective over our experiences and stuff. Because it's easy to be like, oh, I had this. I wouldn't even say I still to this day wouldn't say my experience at Gaston City was terrible. It was challenging, but it
Mhm.
wasn't terrible. Especially again because I have kept living. So I've experienced
Yes.
3 other institutions after Gaston City. So I
Mhm.
know what's out there. And I also know there are people in the state of Alabama who wish they could have gone to a school like Gaston City.
Yes.
Like, you know what I mean? So it's like
Mhm.
that type of stuff is not lost on me. And so what I don't want anyone to take from my particular interview in particular, because I think this is probably the most critical interview that we've had so
Mhm.
far, regarding Gadsden City. I don't want anyone to think that I hate Gadsden City or that I hate Gadsden City schools. Gadsden City is not above criticism, um, and it's not above any of the issues that like we see in other schools across the state and across the nation. But we do have to be honest about, everybody doesn't have the same experience,
Mhm.
so that we can, come
Do
to a
better.
point where we work on it and we do
Mhm.
better, because our children deserve better.
They do.
Um, and that takes a collective effort. But if you never talk about it,
We can't fix anything.
you can't fix it. It's little closed mouths do not get fed. And
We don't
so,
know what we don't know.
we don't know what we don't know. I'm sure that there's probably someone who's, and hopefully someone in administration who's going to listen to this and is probably going to be like, I never knew this was happening
Mhm.
to Alethea, or I never knew this was happening on the AP track or whatever. Well, now
Mhm.
so
Yes.
ask about it, so that you can see, what's going on.
Mhm.
Because if you ask, people will nine
Probably
times out of
too.
10 tell you.
Mhm.
Yeah. So
And then we gotta know the right questions to ask too.
you have to know the right question. Yes, you have to ask the right questions, because if you ask me a question, ask the right
You
questions, you get the right answers.
you know?
So
Yes. So, yes, I hope and like I pointed out, we can get something whether, it's about our perspective. So even if this is a critical viewpoint,
mhm,
we can take a positive out of it. We need to do
right.
better. We can always take a positive out of it, but it's constructive criticism. Um,
Absolutely.
Gadsden City always has a place in my heart. I was educated by the Gadsden City school system, so and I do feel like I've been pretty successful. So why, would I necessarily paint it? But I attribute a lot of that to my family, my village too. But I am a product of Gadsden City schools, so I
Mhm,
want the best to come out of Gadsden City schools.
absolutely.
So let's go ahead and project into the future. Or where do you see yourself in 10 years?
I stopped making 10-year plans.
Listen, living
It's
out,
like,
just living day by
child.
day, honey. I take it a day at a
I
time.
just feel like if you wanna make God laugh, tell him your plans.
Amen.
So aside from the general in 10 years, I hope that by then one is still able to walk this earth,
Amen.
and still be healthy and still be whole. I hope by then in 10 years time y'all be calling me Dr. Russell.
We will.
Uh, but other than that, I take it a day at a time. In
Yes.
10 years, um, I just want to be alive and healthy. And then I don't even try to put any other goal wise pressure on myself like that anymore.
Thank you for that. Because I honestly feel like in life, like so many people, like write your plans, write your goals. And I'm not gonna say anything is necessarily wrong with that. But
Hmm.
it's kind of like like take things a day at a time. Because
Hmm.
I even feel like even as we approach 30, sometimes just certain things occur that it's just like I don't really know if I want to do that. And my sister and I
Right.
had this discussion all the time,
Hmm.
because we both work in clinical roles, and
Yeah.
I'm working to transition myself to a non-clinical role, but I've always wanted my feet still on the ground so I can be cognizant of the things that are going on. But
Right.
we've always said like there's a reason why God just hasn't shifted you from this completely. Like
Hmm.
it's that, like we don't need to be complacent in just one area. And so sometimes I
Yeah.
feel like when we make these plans, we are so focused on this, we forget about
That.
5, 6, 7, 8 over
Yes.
here. And that's not
Yeah.
saying that we have to give all to, and just become so overwhelmed, but sometimes I
Hmm.
don't think that our focus is just to do this thing right here, this thing that we have our gut. We want to do it. That is what I
Right.
wanted to do. That's not where I'm needed. Like, so
Right.
I'm
Right.
glad that you pointed out, like, and that's okay. It's okay to
A day
take
at a
things
time.
that one
A
day
day
at
at
a
a
time.
time.
And then two,
one goal at a
opportunity
time.
just presents itself in different ways. I thought I wanted to do
Absolutely.
this. Now I'm
Yes.
kinda
And
looking
I
like,
have
"Ooh,
thought
this looks interesting over
I
here."
wanted to do certain things or be like, oh, in XYZ time. But you said you
Mhm,
spend so much time chasing one particular pathway that you ignore
mhm,
other opportunities that would have been like awesome for you. So now I just, I set generic goals to the
mhm,
extent that I can. Like right now, my generic goal is I'm gonna finish my PhD. That's generic, but on a incremental basis, I'm gonna say, well, part of me finishing that PhD is doing these particular things, or
mhm.
me taking these particular opportunities. And so that's as far as I go now. Don't
And
act,
that is
uh-uh.
okay, I actually like that, because I'm kinda somewhat like that too, we all have these goals, but we all need to
Yeah,
be realistic that even sometimes when we set goals, things don't always happen in the way that we want them to. So
absolutely.
so
That part.
I love that because it's such a positive one, but it is one where, because people are like, "Well, if you" what's the saying? "If you fail to plan, you
If
plan to
you fail to
fail."
plan, you plan
You
to
plan to
fail.
fail. But that's not necessarily true. Um,
Mhm.
you do want success in your future, but we're also aware that, it one, success is subjective, but
Subjective.
things just don't happen on the trajectory that we want them to happen. And
Right.
so adding 5 years, I want to be here, 10 years, I want to be here, as unnecessary pressure. And we can become
Yeah.
overwhelmed when we're just in a timeline and a crunch to achieve those things.
Yeah.
And we don't
I
need
ain't in
that
no
because we're
rush.
trying to get rid of the stress.
Yeah.
We
Let
don't
it
need
go.
those added pressures on us.
Mm.
So I'm glad that you said that, and hopefully, especially if we have some seniors listening, please take heed to that. Like, I know,
Yeah.
going to college and it's a new experience. It might be frightening, you might be excited, whatever emotion that you're feeling, please don't place unnecessary pressure on yourself. You
Right.
can go to school
Right.
and you can finish in 3, 4, 5, 6 years. Just don't place all of that pressure on yourself. And,
Yeah.
if you go into a class and you don't perform so well, it's okay to retake that class. It's okay to change your major.
It's okay.
You don't have life figured out at 18.
Nobody does.
Nobody has
Plot
life
twist.
figured out
No,
at 18.
literally no one has life figured out at any point in
We are
general.
expecting
It's a
18-year-olds to make
whole
a decision for the rest of
like
their
right.
life, and that's not
Right.
how it should be. So,
No.
I
Absolutely
just
not.
love I listen, I love that. Just love that. And I needed to hear it. We do not always
Good.
have to have these plans.
We
Like,
don't.
we don't.
Mm-mm.
So, taking that with me. Okay. Our alumni association slogan has been "from one home to another," which in hope will encourage Titans to give back to their community. But what does that mean to you? What does that look like to you?
I think for me, especially since I made the slogan, especially since I helped write the slogan, what I think that means is from one home to another is like, um, home is wherever you are,
Mhm.
right? But also for a lot of people, home is Gaston,
Yeah.
right? So, um, I want people to feel like you can still be tied to home wherever whatever your definition of home is, um in a way that is meaningful to you. So like even for me, like I mentioned, I'm not originally from Gaston, so from one home to another, and now at this point I've spent more time away from Gaston than I spent in Gaston. So
Mhm.
now home is literally for me just wherever I am at that given moment. And so I think, I hope that people take away from that slogan, um, that home is what you make it, and that even if home is really far behind you, like Gaston is for me, and I don't have any ties to Gaston anymore because my mom moved after I moved out. That like it can still be a meaningful place, and you can still be a meaningful person to it, and you can still give back to it, even if you're not as deeply rooted in that space in this given time. you know.
Yes. I
So
follow. It is.
that's it. That's what I got.
Well, one last question for you so that you can get on with your day. What piece of advice would you give to a soon to be GCHS graduate?
I tell them buckle up. Like
Get on this batch of
buckle
school
up,
bus, honey.
buckle up. Okay. Um I would it's still good for them to keep living, so I would give them the same advice that I would give myself, but
Mhm.
I would tell a a new graduate for sure, buckle up because it's about to get wild, but it's gonna be wild in like the best way. In the best way. Even when it feels really dark,
Those are the
there's always
moments
a
we
light at the
learn
end of the
ourselves
day.
the most, aren't they?
We learn, yeah, you learn the most of I think you learn so much about yourself in dark times, but I also, take stock of who you are in the light too, because
Mhm.
that's gonna
Absolutely.
really get you through,
The dark.
seemingly tough periods.
Mhm.
But I would tell a new grad to just buckle up, or a soon to be graduate to buckle up. Take stock of the moment, pay attention to your surroundings, soak it all in. But when it's over, put that seatbelt on and just be ready. Like
Ready.
be ready
Beep,
because it's
beep.
your life is just beginning to truly, your
Take off.
horizon just expanded tenfold the second you stepped across that stage.
It
So
does. Ooh, it is so much to experience.
it is.
And I'm so glad I
But
was
it's
able
fun.
to and
I
just
know it was
be engulfed
fun.
in a whole new culture and
Yeah.
ooh, I can't I know and I am all for people doing the things that are best for them, but I will never not advocate for collegiate level experience. I
Yeah.
want everyone to do what is best for them. So whether you go out into the workforce, but at least familiarize yourself with what's going on around you, different cultures and everything. I
Mhm.
just so happened to get that experience at college.
Yeah.
But it was one of the best experiences that I have received.
Yeah. It was
Because
fun.
being in Gadsden, I just was not exposed to certain things. I did not get that exposure
Absolutely.
until I stepped on a campus with over 30,000. What is it? What's the enrollment? 30, 40,000?
Well, back in 2011, when we went to Bama, when you went to Bama and I went to Auburn, the enrollment was like 24,000.
Okay. So
And
I
now
added
it's
some
over
numbers there, but
38. Now
still.
it's over 38,000 people at University of Alabama, Tuscaloosa.
So like
So
it is you learn so much from everybody. So I say, hey, go get that experience. And even if you choose not to, never stop learning. So, like you
never
said,
stop learning.
buckle
Absolutely.
up
Ooh,
because, and if you open yourself up to it, it'll naturally come. So buckle up
yeah.
because you're in for. I would say you're in for a treat. Like as long as you open
I think
yourself
it's
up to it.
fun.
Yeah, life
Yeah.
and life be lifing, but life I
It's
can have some
licensed,
fun too.
but you're gonna have a lot of good party stories at the end of it. So like
So yes, just
just
take it
let it
all in and just don't let it overwhelm you.
yeah,
And you will be okay.
you'll be fine.
You'll be fine. It starts in the mind though.
Mind over matter.
Yes, absolutely. But Alethea, we thank you so much for coming on, sharing your experiences of Gadsden City, and letting us know how you're doing present day and about future hopes and plans. We really
Yeah.
appreciate you, and I'm so glad
Thank
to be able to work
y'all.
alongside you. In
I
a long
know.
conversation.
This has been fun.
It surely has. So until next time, Titans.
Thank you. And everybody, oh, also small plug. We're
Yes.
both wearing our GCHS alumni gear today. If
Yes.
you haven't already, make sure you go check out Breezy Collections alumni gear that she made for our association. 10% of the proceeds do go to our scholarship endowments. And yeah, go Titans.
Go Titans.
Go Titans.